In today's video, we're going to be talking about how one book helped me save $1,000. In today's this or that section, the question is, would you rather run a country or a business? Let me know in the comments below. Right around 5 years ago, this is when I started consistently making money from my side hustle. At the time, I was a postdoctoral researcher at a university here in California, and I had started a side business first as a social media manager and then as a freelance writer, and I was making consistent money in my side business. And it was around that time that I began reading a book, and the book was called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And in the book, Jeff Olson talks about the slight edge. And what is the slight edge? The slight edge are a series of small activities, small things that people do that tend to give them an edge over people. Now, the reason why that is kind of revolutionary, or maybe not revolutionary is too strong of a word, but why that is kind of different is because most of the time when we think about achieving a specific goal, most of us think of those things in big ways. Like, we think we need to do big things to get there. So for instance, you want to lose weight, right? And you think that, oh, I need to exercise for 2 hours every day and change my diet drastically and do all these drastic things in order for that to become a reality. And yes, taking those big, bold actions can, yield some results. But if you will attest to it, okay, let's be honest with ourselves, most of the time that's unsustainable. There are very few people that can sustain working out for 2 hours every single day, or making such a drastic change to your diet, right? Like, so drastic, it's crazy. So sometimes doing those big and bold things, right, are unsustainable, and then we fall back on the goals, and then we think that we can never reach those goals. However, in the book, he argues that if you would take small incremental steps toward a specific goal, it's likely that over time you're going to get there, because it's not overwhelming, it's not unsustainable, it's something that you can do a little bit of every single day, or every single week, or every single month. So how did that help me save $1,000? Well, around that time, I was really thinking about how to take control of my money, how to really begin to take control of my money. Okay, so I had gotten to the place where, if you've listened to my story before, I've done a few videos on this channel where I've talked about how I got started with my business, and I started my business out of necessity, right? I had a job, but California was expensive and I needed to make more money. And so I started a side hustle. But I got into a place where we were comfortable. And so then I began to think, how else can I take charge of the money that I'm earning? And so when I read this book, it gave me an idea to start an emergency fund. I was thinking about starting an emergency fund. At that time, I was in the middle of paying off a lot of my debts as well. And one of the things that I decided to do was start an emergency fund, right? And I had been thinking about it, but hadn't done it because I thought, I'd need a lot of money to start an emergency fund. And for those of you that don't know, an emergency fund is simply a bank account that you set up separately. And I'm going to do a video in which I talk about the different bank accounts that I have. Okay, a bank account that you have set up and you have money in there. And the money in that bank account is for the sole purpose of emergencies, okay? Because we know that things happen. Sometimes your car will break down, sometimes the tires, something will happen, right? And if you know this, then you know that sometimes your regular paycheck may be already accounted for, because you have to take care of bills at home, you have to take care of things that regularly come up, and so this extra cost, right? So the sole purpose of an emergency account is to cover those extra costs when they come up. It's not an account that you regularly spend from. And from my family, we've been able to maintain that for the last 5 years, where we do not pull money from the emergency account until it is absolutely necessary, because some surprise expense has come up. And so right around then, I was watching a video, I think it was by Budget Girl, and she had talked about funding her emergency fund. So I decided, okay, what I'm going to do based on reading this book of taking small incremental steps, I will set up my first $1,000 in an emergency fund. So I discussed it with my husband. We opened a bank account, and what we began to do is put $100 in there every single month. So every single month when I would make money from my side hustle, I would take money from my side hustle, put it in there. Some months it was $100, some months it was $150. And within about 8 or 9 months, there was $1,000 sitting in this emergency fund. And before that, I'd always wonder, how am I going to start this emergency fund? I need somebody to give me a whole bunch of money, then I can take, some money and put it in an emergency fund. But by just taking those monthly steps of putting 100 in there, 150 in there, 200 in there, like here and there, within less than a year, we had an emergency fund of $1,000, and we kept on putting money in there. And, an amazing thing happened right around, the time that we had gotten to about $1,000 or so. The car that we had, we had a Toyota RAV4 at the time, it got into an accident. And it wasn't our fault. My husband was picking my son from school, and someone wasn't looking and ran into him, and the car was broken down. And it was so sad because who wants their car to get into an accident? But thankfully, because we had that emergency fund, we were able to take some of the money from there to fix the car and then continue to have our car, keep it moving. Okay, and so it did come in handy. And that's exactly how the book The Slight Edge helped us save our first $1,000 in an emergency fund. And so probably you're thinking about a goal. The goal. Take a minute and think about the goal. The goal you want to achieve, but you've always told yourself that you need something cataclysmic, something phenomenal, something wowing to happen in order for you to actually get started with that thing. I'm here to tell you that all you need to do is take small incremental steps towards that goal. If you want to start a podcast, put out a podcast episode every week. You want to start a YouTube channel, start putting out relevant YouTube videos every single week. Want to start a blog? Start writing blog posts. Don't wait for something big to drop from the sky to get started. It's those small incremental steps that add up to something really big. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below, what's a big goal that you've been thinking about, you've been waiting on. I bet you could start taking some small steps towards it. Let me know in the comments below.